Early Church Fathers, September 26th, Tertullian. De prescriptione haereticorum, the prescription against heretics, expanded. On the inevitability and appointed purpose of heresies. The character of our age compels me to warn you. Be not surprised that heresies exist, nor scandalized that they abound. Their coming was foretold, and in that foretelling we discover their appointed end. If a thing has been determined by providence to occur, then even its appearance is part of the design, and therefore the very fact of its existence provides its reason for being. Those who stand aghast at the prevalence of false doctrines show only that they have failed to take account of the divine economy. If heresies were never to be, then doubtless they would not be. But since they are, we must seek the meaning of their existence rather than fret at the phenomenon. Do not suppose I commend heresy by saying this. Far from it. I avow that heresy is an evil, appointed in the order of things only as a trial. Its function is that of a test. By the contrivance of temptation, faith may be put to the proof, and thereby shown to be sound. The presence of disease in a body proves the strength or weakness of the patient, so the presence of heresy proves the quality of the believer. The offense which many take at heresies is groundless and unreflecting. They grieve because the test exists rather than strengthening themselves to endure and be approved. If you suffer because heresies are, you forget the purpose for which they are allowed to come upon the world, to separate by affliction and error what is truly sound from what is chaff, that the true grain may be gathered into God's garner. Consider therefore that the power of heresy is not an independent power. It is not truth in another guise. It borrows instead from the weakness of men. Were men steadfast in faith, heresies would be impotent. It is the frailty of believers that gives the tempter entrance and strength. Thus, that which appears formidable is often merely the instrument of human infirmity. On human frailty, the spectacle of fallen excellence, and the constancy of Christ. Observe how it is the weak and wavering who are drawn away. One man's defection becomes a stumbling block to another, and whole assemblies are shaken by the fall of those once esteemed. When men ask, "How is it that this person, who seemed faithful and approved, has embraced error?" they answer their own question in the reply, "Such persons were not as firm as they appeared." So common is this spectacle that Scripture itself furnishes us with examples. Saul, esteemed at first for his zeal, falls by envy. David, called a man after God's own heart, succumbs to adultery and murder. Solomon, enriched with wisdom, is seduced into idolatry by foreign intrigues. If such eminence could not preserve them, what folly to assume that mere human authority or reputation guarantees fidelity to truth. Therefore we must ask whether the faith is to be confirmed by the person or the person by the faith. No man is a Christian by mere outward show. The Christian is he who endures to the end. You may judge a person by appearance, but God looks upon the heart. The Lord knows those who are his, and roots up what he hath not planted. The first shall be last, and he carries his fan to purge the threshing floor. Let the chaff be blown away by every blast of temptation, that the more precious harvest be gathered into his store. Do not let the falling away of disciples dismay you. Even some who followed the Lord for a time turned back, because the trial proved too severe for them. Yet the remainder persevered, not because they were better than the deserters, but because their hearts were held fast by the word of life. When even an apostle was betrayed, the continuity of the apostolic witness was not broken. The Lord's company remained, and by continuing in him the faithful proved the truth of their calling. As St. John testifies, they went out from us, but they were not of us. 2:19. Their departure proves that they were never truly of us. Had they been, they would have continued. And so the spectacle of men falling does not vindicate the heresy that seduced them. The error is not strengthened by the number of its proselytes any more than corruption gains merit by the number of its converts. Rather, the defection of men shows where weakness lies and where the cunning of false doctrine finds purchase. On the disease of error and the remedy of steadfast faith, think then of heresy as of a fever that invades the body. Its existence troubles, it consumes, it proves fatal if unchecked. We do not marvel that fever exists. We loathe it and seek to resist it. Yet the cure of fever lies in the physician's art and in the patient's constitution. So the cure of heresy lies in sound teaching and in the fortitude of believers. A heresy has no more force than the weakness it exploits. A man who is truly strong in faith will find that false teachers are powerless against him, as one boxer may overthrow a weak adversary and then be discomfited by a stronger. Even so, false doctrine may prevail only until it meets resolute conviction. Therefore, be not amazed at the prevalence of error, but be ashamed if you are found among the weak who fall. Strengthen therefore your faith by knowledge, by perseverance, and by communal fidelity to those traditions handed down from the apostles. In that way the disease will be starved of its nourishment, and what remains will be the corn that the Lord will lay up in the granary. Augustine of Hippo, The Confessions, Book 13, Chapter 2. On whether created matter could deserve to be. How has corporeal matter deserved of thee, to be even invisible and formless, since it were not even this hadst thou not made it, and therefore, since it was not, it could not deserve of thee that it should be made? Or how could the inchoate spiritual creature deserve of thee, that even it should flow darksomely like the deep, unlike thee, had it not been by the same word turned to that by whom it was created, and by him so enlightened become light, although not equally, yet conformably to that form which is equal unto thee? For as to a body, to be is not all one with being beautiful, for then it could not be deformed. So also to a created spirit, to live is not all one with living wisely, for then it would be wise unchangeably. On holding fast to God, lest light relapse into darkness. But it is good for it always to hold fast unto thee, lest, in turning from thee, it lose that light which it hath obtained in turning to thee, and relapse into a light resembling the darksome deep. For even we ourselves, who in respect of the soul are a spiritual creature, having turned away from thee, our light, were in that life, sometimes darkness, and do labor amidst the remains of our darkness, until in thy only one we become thy righteousness, like the mountains of God, for we have been thy judgments, which are like the great deep. Thomas Aquinas, Summa Theologica, Part 1-2, Question 9, Articles 4 and 6. Whether the will is moved by a heavenly, created principle, or by God as an exterior principle. Objection. It seems that the will may be moved by a principle exterior to the soul. For one, the heavens and celestial bodies are reputed to influence many bodily and psychic motions. If bodily movements depend ultimately on the motion of higher bodies, then human willing, which issues in bodily acts, might be traced to a heavenly principle. 2. Created intelligences, especially angels, at times enlighten and stir the intellect. Since the will follows the apprehension of the intellect, an angel might thus serve as an exterior mover of the will. 3. External things, the exhortations of teachers, laws, visible goods, commonly induce men to will and act. Hence these exterior things appear to be proximate movers. 4. Finally, if by exterior principle one understands a first extrinsic cause, it might be held that God himself, as first cause, moves the will from without in an order that makes him the exterior principle of volition. Responsio, I answer that the question blends several distinct senses of principle of motion, which must be carefully distinguished. First, if by an exterior principle we mean something wholly outside the soul that functions as the proximate efficient cause of volition in the same manner that a hand moves a stone, then the will is not so moved. A proximate mover must present the object proper to the appetite. The will is a rational appetite whose proper act presupposes the interior apprehension of the good. That apprehension is primarily an act of the intellect, an internal act, or, when sensible, an act of the imagination moved by sensible affections. Therefore, the immediate proximate principle of willing is internal, the intellect's judgment that something is desirable or a sensible affection making some good seem present and urgent. Second, this truth does not exclude the causal efficacy of created exterior agents. Heavenly bodies, insofar as they are bodies, can affect sensitive powers, humors, senses, and thereby indirectly influence the imagination and passions that shape how the intellect presents goods to the will. Thus, celestial influence is possible mediately, a remote, material, or occasional cause, but not as the proximate efficient principle of the will's interior act. Likewise, angels may enlighten the intellect and so occasion willing, yet such angelic action is an instrumental or occasional cause, not the immediate interior principle that constitutes the will's proximate act. Third, regarding God's causality, God is the first cause of all being and activity. In the highest and most universal sense, God is the source of the will's motion, for without God neither intellect nor will would have being or the power to move. Nevertheless, God ordinarily moves the will not by supplanting its proximate interior principle, but by moving or enlightening the proximate causes, intellect, sensible powers, imagination, or by elevating the soul by grace. This divine causation orders and sustains all subordinate causes without destroying the will's proper interior agency, and it does not render God the author of sin. Therefore, heavenly bodies and other exterior things can occasion or contribute to the motion of the will only mediately. Angels may assist or occasion by presenting intelligible goods, but they are not the proximate interior principle of volition. God is the ultimate first cause and ground of the will's capacity and motion, but ordinarily operates through the will's proximate interior principles rather than as a wholly extrinsic proximate mover. Quick summa. The will is not properly moved in its proximate act by a wholly exterior, heavenly or created principle. Its proximate mover is the interior presentation of the good, intellective judgment or sensible affection, while exterior agents, heavenly bodies, angels, visible goods, operate only mediately as remote, instrumental, or occasional causes, and God as first cause undergirds and orders these motions without destroying the will's proximate interior agency. William and the messenger. A knock came to William's door. A portmaster offered immediate work and a heavy pouch as proof. The sight of coin, the neighbor's eager tone, and the imagined faces of his hungry children pressed upon William's senses. Appetite warmed, and the imagination painted comfort. That sensible occasion stirred passion toward the present good. Before decision, a monk named Zach sat and spoke with William. He did not condemn needing bread. He described instead a life shaped by hours of study and liturgy, a steady charity that formed the soul. As Zach talked, reasons and images of a different order came into William's mind. Faces of novices, the hush of the cloister, a long and ordered good. The intellect perceived a clearer form. The will, moved proximate by that interior presentation of the intelligible good and aided by counsel, inclined toward the steadier end. Thus the neighbor's pouch had been an external occasion that stirred appetite. The monk's counsel clarified the intelligible good that the will properly follows. External influences occasion and assist, but the proximate turning of the will issues from an interior apprehension of the good, finally ordered to God.